variation. Forget gold, blaze, black camo, camo, fire force, first phase, G-force, infinity, blood, hex, loot. What does this all mean? Warsaken rarities may seem a bit complicated at first hand, but I assure you, it all makes sense once you know a few things. I'm Warner Jesus, and in this video I will jump to the meat of the matter. What cards you need to acquire that you will have an actual gameplay advantage. First off, if you are used to trading card games, the choice of what card is most powerful is pretty simple. You simply go for the most rarest one, right? However, in Warsaken, things get a bit more complicated. And to understand why the game is so complex when it comes to rarities, you must first understand the design principle Warsaken developers have added to this game. It's what I call the game first principle. Warsaken was first designed as a tabletop game a couple of years ago, and all its mechanics and systems were done and ready before they decided to jump into blockchain. This means that since blockchain came into the picture, they also needed to add the expected play to earn mechanics, which are nowadays must for blockchain games. Yet they wanted to keep the game aspect intact and ensure that no matter how much money a person would put on the game, they wouldn't have a significant advantage over a normal player, so that every player, no matter how little or how many cards and what rarities they owned, would have a similar gaming experience, and only a person with a real skill would end up winning matches. This is why, if you look at Warsaken cards and take a look at the leaders, for example, you can see that if I change the rarity of the leaders, let's say from the normal rarity to foil prime, which is a bit rarer, the leaders have 17 start moral and 200 health, let's say in case of Warcom here. If I put it even rarer, let's say 45k cold card, he has a 200 health and 17 starting moral. And if I take the rarest variant, which is blood foil, he will still have 70 starting moral and 200 health. So card rarity has no function on game mechanics. What, however, card rarities do affect is how much experience the card gives. And experience defines your loot rank, which in turn tells you how much loot you get each day. So if you are just willing and interested on playing the game, you do not need to pay any attention on card rarity. You can simply take the most common cards and use them in game, and in both Warsaken Blitz and Standard you will more or less get the same advantage as the person paying hundreds or thousands of dollars to get the highest staking tiers and rare cards. However, the other part of Warsaken design principle is to allow people who want to earn play in the game something to aim for. And that is where the Rarity System comes in, and these loot tables as well. So, simple rule is, card rarity does not give a card advantage in the game. It, however, increases the rewards and loot you can gain by staking, which in Warsaken means by merely holding your card every day. That is the advantage of spending money on Warsaken. You get more returns for your investment. But for this video we are talking about gameplay advantages. So let's return to those. Since Warsaken Blitz was the latest version of Warsaken that was released on public beta, I think most of you here are for the Warsaken Blitz advantages. These are really easy to explain, so I will go for those first. If you look at this image, I am laying out you the best possible leaders and territories to use for Warsaken Blitz. In Warsaken Blitz, you simply want to have 20 moral value and as low costs for your territory eliminations as possible. And the lowest moral penalty territory in the game is called Vast Hinterlands, which is on the bottom left corner, which has only one moral penalty if eliminated. But it also has a moral reduction of 1 when it's placed on the field at the start of the game, which means that any leader has their starting moral reduced by 1. Now, since the perfect starting moral for Warsaken Blitz is 20, this means that the above leaders, Zainion, Avati, Changli, and Ziana, infinite variants, in any of their rarities, be it full art or blood foil, are the best ones to use with this territory, since it puts your starting moral exactly to 20. After that, you just pick territories you have the lowest moral penalties for. In this showcase, I'm showing Optani production site, Baglia Island and Port Kamasani, which all have only 3 moral penalty. But you can of course use any card you want, though if you want to keep an advantage in Blitz, you want to keep those red texts at the bottom, which are the moral penalties, lowest as possible. And try to avoid the card with 8 or 9 moral costs, because they can make you lose a game pretty fast. Unless of course that is your plan. For example, if you know your opponent is using Intel deck that has only, let's say, 2 or 3 forces, it might be actually beneficial, with that little pre-knowledge, to take some territories that are tempting for them to target, instead of them, doing the usual and reducing your deck size to 0 first and then starting to match forces. But that's a pretty advanced plan, and you can only use it on specific situations, so I wouldn't recommend it. Now let's go to Warsaken Standard, where things start to get a bit more complicated. If you were only interested in the advantage for Warsaken Blitz, the earlier section of the video was everything you need to know. Anything I say from now on doesn't matter for Warsaken Blitz at all. They only matter for Warsaken Standard, which is the full version of the game, which is not yet out, unless you want to play the demonstration version in Tapletop here, in which case you cannot use your own cards and these advices don't matter. But if you want to prepare for future, now is the time to take notes. Let's first go through the cards which you can find from the premium, elite and booster packs, which will give you a slight gameplay advantage. The first thing you need to pay attention to is the leader variation. When you're opening packs, you can get a leader variation called Infinite. So select here leader and put the subtype of Infinite. You can see that this leader variant is a bit different than the other one. It faces sideways and it has a slightly different statistics. The normal leader has, as described earlier, 200 health and 17 starting moral, but an infinite variation of a leader has 1 extra moral, in this case 18, and 1 extra health, in this case 210. If you take a look at the screen, I have listed some example infinite leaders and the advantages they give. Remember that these leaders can be of any variation rarity, as long as they are infinite and have the infinite tag in their name after the leader text. And all infinite leaders give you an advantage of 1 more moral and extra 10 health over a normal leader. And only a leader card can be considered infinite. While these moral bonuses also affect you in Blitz, as I mentioned earlier, the health bonus only comes to play in Warsaken Standard. You generally want to use the leader with highest health and highest moral value possible of the leader you choose to use when you are playing standard. There are a lot more ways in standard to protect your moral, however, so having a lower starting moral doesn't matter as much as in Warsaken Blitz. Now let's go to the next card type, which you can get from the Warsaken booster packs, normal elite packs and premium packs, which are the G-Force cards. Like Infinite Leaders, G-Force cards can exist in all rarities outside common. They basically start from full art, like Infinites do. And the main benefit you have from using a G-Force in standard is that they only use generic resources. If you look at the example picture, we have listed some of the G-Force and rank 4 cards in the game. If you look at above, you see that all the resource costs are in white dots, which are generic resources. And if you look at the bottom image, there are a lot more different types of resources listed. As you can replace a generic resource with any produced resource, this makes G-Force cast extremely easy to play and often faster as well than the normal variations. This is why you can only have one G-Force card in your deck in its entirety, not by one each type, but one in entirety. It is essentially your ace cards which you want to get on the field as soon as possible. I personally consider the Kraken, which is on the top right corner, to be possibly the best G-Force cards in the game, but that of course depends on what you look for G-Force cards. The other ones are also as effective depending how you build your deck. In my case, I prefer the Kraken since it removes opponents' ability to have a stealth on their units, which essentially makes their invisible units visible. But that's a personal preference, and I do not recommend everyone to base their gameplay based on my preferences. You can also use an upgrade recipes to increase the health of Fireforge cards by 10, but I will cover the upgrade recipes next. Before I explain upgrading, however, I'd like to mention that the higher rarities of those cards I mentioned earlier, the Infinite Leaders and G-Force ones, can also be get from the loot packs from Warsaken store, but I will cover them in detail a bit later. Additionally, I would like to mention that if you want to look tutorials and videos about upgrading, go to warsaken.com and go to the digital section and just scroll down. You can see all the original pack prices and shots here. But at the bottom there is a section called Upgrade and Blend NFTs. If you click the Learn to Upgrade button, you'll see a video tutorial, how it works, and all the different variations and upgrades you can do, including the recipes. Now to simplify things for you, if you look at the screen now, you will see an image of the base leader Warcop upgraded in the various recipes available. And these 5 upgrade times are the ones you need to pay attention to if you want to get a gameplay advantage. These times are normal Fireforge, which you can get by combining 5 full art or metal art cards. The second one is the Fireforge First Wave, which simply means that you use the First Wave upgrade card to replace one of the cards you need for the upgrade recipe. It yields higher experience rewards, about 10 times more than normal Fireforge, but besides that it has no gameplay advantages. Next one is the Foil Fire First Wave recipe. This also gives more experience, but has no additional benefits besides that. Then the Camo Edge First Wave and Black Camo First Wave. These last three ones, the Foil Fire, Gamma Edge and Black Camo, use rarer cards than normal ones for the upgrades. So they are mostly for people that basically want to have best of the both worlds, having higher staking experience value while having that extra 10 health. For a player focusing on the game alone, I recommend the normal Fireforge or the Fireforge First Wave editions. They are easier to do and much cheaper. All these craftable variations will increase your card's health by then. This also means they are only beneficial, unless you just want experience, for cards that have a health value system. These card types are Force cards. As you can see, all these soldiers here, and tanks and so on. You can increase their health by 10 if you do those upgrades. Then there are building cards, which also benefit from the extra health. The yellow box with the black text. Then there are the territory cards that also have a health mechanic. These benefit from Fireforge. And of course, leader cards in all their variations, just as Infinite, or the G-Force cards. So now let's go back to the list. Remember, you can stack the bonus which you get from upgrading cards with the earlier mentioned infinite leader advantages. This only works with the infinite leaders. So for infinite leaders who already have 1 moral and 10 health, if you use one of these upgrade recipes, they will have a 1 moral bonus and 20 health. This is the highest bonus you can add to a leader card in the game, and as said, it works only for leader card. The territories, forces and buildings can only get the +10 bonus using these recipes. Now, next thing we are gonna cover are the card types which you can get from the Warsaken loot packs. To get Warsaken loot, you either need to buy it from Texas's Arco, or you need to have the staking value of your deck to be high enough. You check the loot section, which I mentioned, to give you enough loot to buy these packs. And these loot packs have some unique variations of leaders that you can only get from the loot packs. The first variation, which has some meaning for Warsaken, is the one you see on the screens, which is called the loot leaders. There are 2 types of loot leaders: the normal ones and the 24k gold variation. The only difference these leaders have compared to normal leaders is that loot leaders give you a 1 starting resource at the start of the game. They do not have any other advantages, no extra health, no extra moral, and you cannot upgrade them. It's a fairly small advantage, but depending what you are looking for, it might matter. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that the gold leaders here, which you can get from loot packs, count as gold leaders for staking as well. Which means if you want to increase your staking value and in-game rewards, these gold leaders will open you an option to reach for higher tiers, so they have extra value that way, but they do not have any other benefit for gameplay outside the resource. Loot leaders also have absolutely no advantage for Warsaken Blitz. These bonuses only apply for Warsaken Standard. Now the next rarity I'd like to go through, or variation, are the Decadent and Murdered Out leaders, which you are seeing on the screen now. These are also gainable from the loot packs, both normal and platinum ones, at least when it comes to the Tyrant variation of the Decadent leaders. Now, these leaders give you a penalty tomorrow. In case if you look at the Volkov at the top left corner, he has 16 starting moral, While we covered earlier, normal vocal leader has a 70 starting moral, so they take a moral penalty. But to balance this out, they get an extra ability to increase your resource production by 5 generic resources every second turn if you just use it as an ability, that is, but you do lose 3 moral. This means that these cards are much faster to mass resources, but they are also more vulnerable and get the moral reduced to 0 more easily than the other cards. So I'd consider them as an expert cards. You really need to know what you're doing if you want to get best out of this. The upper variation, which you can see on the screen, is gainable by loot packs, and the bottom one is a bit special. It's called Murdered Out, essentially the same card, but you can only gain those by physical Warsaken merchandise. So far, the only Murdered Out readers that are circulating in the secondary market are either from the promotional sales of Warsaken baseball hat, or the very rare test drops of these cards. So there aren't many of them in circulation, but in future you have a chance to find these from any Warsaken physical merchandise, be it hoodies, baseball caps, t-shirts, or even the physical pre-order versions of the game. They will all have a chance, have a Murdered Out code, which has a chance to be one of these variations. The next version, which I would like to highlight, are some of the unique versions for the territories which you can get from the loot packs. If you look at the screen, you will see a territory called Wolf Power District. The leftmost one highlights the normal version of the scar, which has 400 health. Then all the upgraded versions, which I mentioned earlier, would give this card, as it has a health mechanic, extra 10 health. But then there are 2 card variations that are extremely rare and valuable. Some would argue they are on the same level as the 1 out of 1 plot foil cards in Rarity. Some might even say they are more valuable depending what you look for in the game. These cards are called Tenant and Owner variations. And both these cards increase the territory's starting health by 50, being the highest health bonus you can have on a card by merely having a unique variation of it. These cards also have some special functions. Both Tenant and Owner let you rent out your decks, so if you like deck building and want other people to play your decks and also get some benefit out of it, you need one of these cards. Additionally, they gave the highest loot per day bonus which you can get from a card. Currently, a Tenant card gives you 20,000 loot and Owner card gives you 200,000 loot, which, if you would like to put it on perspective, is more than you get from the second higher staking tier. Double, actually. So these cards are extremely valuable, and also the bonuses they give will be higher than what you would get from the normal limitations. So if you have, let's say, daily limitations of 10,000 loot from your staking, 100,000 loot from staking, if you have an Owner card, you can claim that and add the 200,000 top of it. They will change to a time though, and eventually developers plan to make it so that these cards give their loot bonus based on how much their normal versions are used in the game. I would also like to mention that these cards give you almost no experience from gameplay once it's implemented. So if you want to just get an advantage on game and use one of these, that's fine, but do not expect a high experience bonus payout, since they already have plentiful benefits which you can have. To sum up everything we just went through, if you look at the screen, I have some pointers. The main rule is that cards rarity does not give you a gameplay advantage. Base, the most common card variation, is as effective in game as a plot foil, the rarest card variation of that card. Any version of an infinite leader, no matter what rarity, gives you a bonus 1 moral and 10 health to that leader. G-Force cards give you advantage because they are easier to play to only using generic resources. Upgrading a card to 5 Forge or higher rarity gives it a 10 health. However, only cards with health mechanics, such as buildings, territories, leaders and force cards can benefit from this. Other variations only get a boost to experience. This upgrade can also be used on infinite leaders for additional 10 health, adding total to +1 moral and 20 health. Loot leaders, which you can get from loot packs, act like normal leaders, but they give you a 1 generic resource at the start of the game, giving you a small edge. Decadent leaders, which you can also get from the loot packs or the murdered out variants from the merchandise, have 1 penalty to moral, but can sacrifice moral to generate 5 extra resources every 2 turns, effectively being difficult to use ace cards. Owner and tenant variations of territory cards give you a +50 health to that territory, allow you to gain a lot extra loot a day, and rent out your decks in future. Finally, if you are still curious about the staking aspect and what experience rarities give to you, here is a list that Jensen from the Warsaken Discord has compiled, and which you can find from the Warsaken general chat pinned options if you just scroll a bit down, or go to the Jensen spot section of Discord and roll around a bit, or use the commands there to show you all the card rarities and benefits. They also have all the recipes and such there, so it's a useful section of Discord to be at. Anyways, I hope this reduced your confusion a bit, especially if you are like me and the benefit you gain in game matters you more than the actual staking aspect of the game. Anyways, should you choose to try playing Warsaken, I hope you will enjoy it. And as always, stay safe and thank you for watching.